Joyce Pellino Crane. I'm here with the newest member of the school committee, Kathryn Clear. And we're just going to do a little interview and find out a little bit about her because I didn't know you, Kathryn.
No.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, Joyce, for having me. I appreciate it.
Happy to do it. So tell me, you just sort of came out of nowhere for me, and you won the whole election. Well, other than you got the second most votes of anyone running for school committee this year. There were 6 candidates, 3 open seats, and you got one of them.
I did. Yeah, it was an interesting race. I think we had such a mix of candidates. You know, we had 3 incumbents and we had 3 newbies, as I was calling us. And even I think across the board, you had so many different people and personalities. So I was hearing that a lot from people as I was chatting over the last couple of weeks, going, you know, it's strange times, it's a strange year, and with so many candidates, we have no idea what the outcome is going to look like. But it made for fun discussions.
You know, it was funny because you did a PSA at WestfordCAT, did you not?
I did.
And all of us who saw it were like, oh, she's really good. Like there was a buzz about you already just from that PSA.
Hi Westford, my name is Kathryn Clear and I'm running for school committee. I'm asking for your vote in our upcoming town elections because I believe that my background, experience and perspective will bring a fresh voice to our school committee.
Yeah, well, it might have taken about 3 days worth of prep coming in to do it. I'd never done anything like it before. But I have to say the staff at WestfordCAT were all amazing and really made me feel relaxed. But I just thought it was a really good opportunity. You know, COVID had kind of kept us in this little bubble, you know, in the last 12 months. And, you know, when we moved to Westford, we know this is our forever home. And I generally get stuck in when we've moved because we've done it a few times. And kind of COVID had just had limited that. So I felt the PSA was just a really good way to show people who I hadn't had a chance to meet that this is me, this is what you get. And kind of as a way, because I know a lot of the campaigning was different like last year and this year, you know, it was mostly done online and phone conversations and, you know, outdoor porch conversations with people. So it was just another way to reach Westford voters.
So tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I've a mix. I was actually born here, a New Yorker like yourself, but my parents are Irish from Tipperary, and they had met. It's so funny. They live an hour away from each other, and in Tipperary, grew up an hour away from each other, but they met in Manhattan, as you do.
Oh wow!
And so they had a family, but we moved back home when I was younger, and so I grew up in Ireland. But we had strong connections, you know, to the US. So I have uncles and aunts here, and my godmother's here, and lots of family friends. So we were over and back a number of times. I even attended school for a year in Florida, which was really interesting actually, because the elementary school I went to in Ireland was a 2-room, 2-teacher school. 8 grade levels, and there were 60 students in the entire school. And I'll never forget arriving into Tommy Barfield Elementary to what felt like this metropolis of a campus with an art room and a cafeteria. So, you know, I've always, you know, the US has always been a second home for me. And so we moved over here a number of years ago. I'm an elementary teacher, and with my husband David, we have our 3 kids. So Connor's in 4th grade in Abbott, and we have twin girls, identical girls. That was a fun surprise. And they're in 1st grade in Nab. So prior to actually moving over here, we'd lived in Scotland for a number of years, where I had trained as a teacher, as my elementary teacher, because prior to that, I had worked in public relations and communications for a number of years when we were still in Ireland. So we've moved a lot and had a lot of life experience, and this just seemed like a natural next step for us.
To come to, well, what brought you here?
To Westford in particular? Well, we ended up in the US over 6 years ago for David's job. The joys of being a teacher, you can kind of move anywhere, so you tend to follow the spouse. And we were renting in Lexington originally when we first moved over, but we knew we had to find a forever home. And so one of the funniest things was, I remember the day we drove out to Westford, and I was like, I think this is the place we're going to buy. I was like, I don't know, and obviously the schools were good, very important for an educator. But I remember driving past one of the houses just up, it's just kind of at the start of Depot Street, that red farmhouse.
Yes.
I've never met them. Yes. And they had a sign outside the front that said free manure next right. And I just started laughing, going, I could be in Tipperary right now. This is obviously a great community. And so that was it. And we found our house that day. And, we even met our neighbors that day. I mean, as I was saying to David, how often do you meet your neighbors and get to know them before you've even put an offer in on a house? So hats off to the Sawmill Drive crew. They were the ones who convinced us that this was a good spot. And I tell you, they proved us right during COVID. We've had such an amazing support network here. And and I even had half of them out on Tuesday holding signs, and they hadn't held signs for anyone prior. So, we've got a good bunch here.
That's friendship. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm wondering what inspired you to run this year?
Well, we don't have school committees at home. And when I first moved over, I was really intrigued by it. I mean, I've always been interested in politics. My mother-in-law has been an elected official in Ireland, and we were always involved in that way. But the idea of a school committee, I found interesting. I always felt there would be one day I would run, probably ran maybe a little bit sooner. But the last year, obviously, I was really engaged and watching a lot. And the superintendent search actually here in the last couple of months, I just got really excited about it. We had, 4 really interesting candidates. I had engaged with the process, and, by watching all the interviews and giving my response. And I was like, this is a really exciting time for someone on school committee? We're kind of moving past COVID, hopefully. And we've a new superintendent coming in and a new strategic plan to be developed. And I just thought, you know what, I have to give it a shot. I'm a firm believer in what's meant for you won't pass you by, and let's just see what happens. So I'm very excited that I actually get the opportunity now to work with Dr. Chris Chu and, and the rest of the school committee and develop, what are the next 3 years for Westford and our kids as we come out of the last 12 months.
So what do you see your role as on the committee? How would you add value to the committee?
Well, I think obviously I have a communications background originally, and I think that's something that's really important, especially in this day and age when, you have a lot of families, we're busy with kids and after school activities, and families where, both adults are working in the home. And so I think communication is becoming even more important in terms of how we access it and its availability. And creating a transparency around the process that goes into running our schools and our decision making, and bringing back maybe some trust into that whole process. So I'm a firm believer in that transparency and communication can do that. So that's one area I really hope I can add value there. Obviously as well, being a classroom teacher, I'm in a unique position that, having my own kids, and I think actually having my own kids have made me a better teacher. And so I can see how various policies or decisions and how it can affect both perspectives and both sides. And I understand how schools work and how, teachers, think about things or maybe approach a decision. So obviously that I think is really important for school committee, maybe to have that perspective. And also I have kiddos who are involved in special education as well. So it's a little love affair of mine, but I'm a firm believer in all our classrooms should be inclusive anyway, and what works for one kid works for all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about the academics. I learned that very early on in my teaching career. If you don't have that social and emotional and create a really loving, warm classroom environment, you will never teach even the brightest kids. It's really important for that kind of social emotional well-being before a child is ever able to learn anything else. So that's also something I really want to advocate. And I think coming out of COVID, it's obviously, really important right now. It's at the forefront. I know we're talking a lot about, learning loss or, finding out what we've missed and catching up. And I know the administration is working on that right now. But I think we've got to really look at our kids and see, where have they been over the last 12 months, and, maybe they have anxiety around being in the school buildings again or the classrooms. And, it still isn't back to normal. We've still got kids masked, and we've still got to distance, and some things are working differently still in the schools. So we have to be really mindful of our kids right now, and really kind of help them cope for probably another 12 months at least, until we're fully out of the pandemic in that sense. So that'll be forefront, I think, with any decision making we do over the next couple of months.
When over the past couple of years, it's been a very strained, tumultuous period for the school committee. A lot of things happened. Did any of that, I could list them, starting with, a history teacher that allegedly made some false identities on social media and
Facebook, yeah.
There was a period when the school committee was seeking not to extend Superintendent Bill Olson's contract, and there was a backlash from that. And I guess I could go on, but you get the picture. Does it concern you as a new member?
Well, I tell you, it made for an interesting first initial few years in Westford when we moved. I suppose school committee meetings generally tend to be boring and not a lot going on. I don't think it influences me in that sense that, obviously that's life. Things happen, personalities, situations crop up. It's unusual that I think all of that has happened on top of COVID. Just the timing of everything has been really interesting. But I think what I come away from it is, not being involved directly in any of that, is that we can't lose sight of what school committee is about. We're here to advocate for families. We're here to advocate for the kids. And it's really important that as school committee members, we lead by example, and that we are transparent and create trust in the process, and we communicate, and that, my focus and our focus should really be to try and block out the noise a lot of the time, because, as a large community with a large student population, we have many different needs and personalities and families and backgrounds. And so we've got to really try and block out that noise, and while listen to obviously the families of Westford, we've got to focus on what's next, what's the right decision for our district, for our schools, for our kids and our staff, and move forward. And I think now more than ever, it's very evident that it's about progression, you know, as teachers, we're constantly told it's about self-reflection and professional development and moving forward. And I think we need to do that as a district. We need to self-reflect. We need to look at our own development, and we need to move forward, because we're not doing our kids any favors by kind of getting into that stuff. You know, I trust all those moments, you know, get handled. You know, I know obviously with the teacher, you know, that's being handled legally at the moment. Maybe we could do better in terms of communicating more on that issue. But you know, it wasn't necessarily an influence. I would say actually the bigger influence for me was the superintendent search and a new superintendent, and just the feeling of newness and freshness, and let's start in a really good place. So that was more of the drive, I think. I tend not to do drama.
Well, you'd be good at it. But last question. What would you like Westford residents to know about you and about your goals?
I think the main thing is that, you know, I'm enthusiastic and I'm a worker and I like to see results. But the main thing is that I'm open and willing to listen and, you know, hear people and their experiences, because every child is different and every family is different. So even though we're public schools, we all have different, we're a public school system, we all have different experiences of it. And so I would really like Westford to see that I'm open, I want to listen, and I really want to have conversations. You know, I'm a firm believer that, you know, the way work gets done is by listening to all sides and everybody collaborating and working together, and compromising. You know, we're not always going to get everything we want or run things the way we want to run them. But at the end of the day, you know, we've got to compromise and work together for the sake of everyone. So I'm hoping Westford, but I've seen it already. I've had an amazing 2 months of conversations, and the passion and energy of people in this town who want nothing but the best for the community. And I'm talking about people who have no kids in the school system even now. They are still so invested because they value the huge role that the schools create in our community, and you know that these are the leaders of the future. And so it's heartened me a lot to see that my initial gut instinct about Westford was right, and that I've made so many friends already, extra friends, in the last couple of weeks. So I just hope Westford, you know, they trust me, and if I'm not doing something right, I'm no doubt they'll let me know, but that I come with nothing but the best intentions, and really just to try and create kids that we can be proud of that graduate from Westford Academy. So,
well, I'm so thrilled to have met you now, and I have high hopes for you. I think I think it's a wonderful new beginning for the school committee. So thank you, Kathryn.
Thanks a million, Joyce. It was lovely talking to you.
For WestfordCAT News, this is Joyce Pellino Crane.